Today we're going to see how to change a blown fuse, a capacitor fuse, in a capacitor or filter bank. The first step changing a fuse is to shut the bank down. To do that, we need to operate the selector switches for each stage. In this case they're in auto mode. We're going to switch each one off. Listen for the stage to come off. Next one, turn off. Make sure it comes off. And the last one. So right now all three stages, in this case we have a three-stage bank, all three stages have been turned off, and we have visual feedback from the off lamps. Here, and here. The next step is to operate the A1 key switch. And remove the key. Now, this is important. From the time all the stages have come offline, we need to wait a minimum of 5 minutes before entering the bank. So you need a timer of some sort. If there's not one built into the controls like there is in this case, which will tell you when 5 minutes has expired, you need to time it manually. And the reason for that is we need to allow time for the individual capacitors to bleed their charge off through internal resistors, and that takes approximately 5 minutes. That's a minimum. It probably would be good to wait longer than that, but at least 5 minutes. Okay, so now we have the A1 key, which came out of from the swing panel. And we take that key and we bring it over to the air disconnect, the isolation switch, which is currently closed. We're going to insert the key, the A1 key, turn it, and operate the air disconnect. Now there's an inspection window. You need to look through that window and make sure that the arms have operated and there is a visible disconnect now from the incoming cables to the rest of the bank. Once you have confirmed that, we're going to operate the ground switch. Now you'll notice there's a key that's in the lock on the ground switch. That key is captive right now, and that cannot be removed. But we'll see when you do operate the ground switch and it's closed position. You'll be able to remove that key. You also want to look through the window and verify that the ground switch has indeed transferred. Alright. So now we have this A2 key in our hand that came out of the ground switch. We know our air switch is open. We know our ground is closed. So we can take that A2 key and bring it to the first door in the sequence, insert it into the open key lock hole, turn it, and that'll allow that door to open. And this is where our fuse is that we're going to change. So now keep in mind that these are capacitors and they do hold a residual charge. They're supposed to bleed off through their internal resistors, but it's something you want to make sure has happened rather than just assume. So we recommend grounding the individual capacitors with a suitable grounding stick. In this case we're attaching to the bank ground with a pole and a connector on the end. And you probably should use suitable high voltage gloves. or whatever PPE is actually whatever is required by your company. So what we're going to do is contact each capacitor, anything you could come in contact with your hands, your body, your head, the general area where you'll be working. Make sure that you make contact with each terminal, and especially the area where you'll be working. Once that's done, you're going to operate the retaining clips and remove the fuse. Now, in this case, the fuse is intact. If it had in fact operated, there would be a plunger that comes out the top. It's a sort of a light red color anodized aluminum pin, and that would be sticking out, indicating the fuse is blown. And that in turn operates a mechanism that operates a micro switch and lets the bank or the controls know that the fuse is operated. There are cases where the fuse might actually shatter and there'll be sand on the bottom of the enclosure, broken bits of the shell of the fuse. But in any case, that plunger should have operated and caused the blown fuse mechanism to in turn operate. So once you've cleared the area, cleaned up any sand, any residual pieces of the fuse, you can clip in a new fuse, close the bails, and that task is complete. The important thing here to remember is that when we're dealing with capacitors that have been removed from the AC source, they still contain a charge, and in fact it's a DC charge at this point. So a quote sniffer or an AC type detector will not detect DC voltage on the caps, and so you want to avoid using that. You want to make sure that you manually discharge, make contact to ground with any areas that you could come in contact with before you service the bank.